Hello friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. We start our video with a story that happened on New Year's Eve when our OP did not want to celebrate the new year alone. Decided to go to his friend, but on the way he met a terrible lady who really wanted to meet the new year in the subway. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Sorry for the delay, there are idiots on the tube. New Year's Eve. I was told that every London Underground line would be open until 4:30 a.m. and that from 11:45 to 4:30 a.m. it would be free of charge. Thus, I decided at the last minute to make a quick dash to my friend's house so that I'd be able to celebrate the beginning of a new year with someone else and not alone. 11:20 p.m. Halfway through my short journey, while I was interchanging at King's Cross Station, along comes a woman who looked to be in her 30s, dressed in attire that screamed tourist, consisting of a woolen hat, gloves, and a thick, bristly jacket with the words, "I love London," imprinted on the front. The first red flag was then she stood on her phone, watching a movie out loud for the public to hear on the left side of the escalator downward, which is one of my biggest pet peeves. Worsened by the fact I was in a mild rush and didn't want to have to stop to wait for others to dawdle down on their merry way. Yet, I let it slide as I was too polite to ask her to get out of the way, and I knew that sometimes foreign tourists didn't have a full understanding of the tube etiquette that was commonplace. I let it slide. Alas, my attention was once again drawn to the same woman when I saw her rush past several members of the public walking down the station in order to grab a seat to wait for the train, bearing in mind that trains come every 1 to 4 minutes, and she appeared to be carrying little that could weigh her down. I watched in partial disbelief when she stole the priority seat, another one of my pet peeves, stealing the priority seat from those who need it, from an elderly man who looked to be slowly making his way to the same position, but was cut short by this boisterous lady. Eavesdropping slightly, I heard the man ask very politely, "May I please have this seat?" only to be rejected with such a response as, "Sorry, I don't speak much English." This man then approached a staff worker who asked the woman to give up her seat, to which she replied with angry curses in a foreign language, and ultimately the worker gave up. The final straw for me was when, upon entering the train, eastbound Victoria line, it was apparent she actually had no effing clue where she was going, and instead of looking on the map, which was very clearly printed overhead, she took to the nearest person to her seat. Me. I was minding my own business, listening to some lo-fi music, when I felt a rough tug on my arm and looked over to see this lady not so subtly asking me for help. Had she asked politely, I would have had no hesitation at all, but instead of doing so, she immediately blurted out her question to me. She explained in broken English that she wanted to go to Edgware Station to meet her friends outside the Beirut Cafe for what I can only assume to be a New Year's Eve meetup. I myself have been in that area before, so I knew that in fact she was talking about Edgware Road Station, which was in a different location. This was where my idea began to take place. Edgware Station, the destination that she didn't actually want to go to, is a good 45-minute tube journey away from Edgware Road Station, and is the very last spot on a long branch of the northbound Northern Line with no interchanges. The time taken to get there, realize the mistake, and travel to the correct station was far greater than the 35 minutes or so left until 2019, and thus my plan began to materialize. I told her with great confidence that I knew exactly where she was going, as I'd been to that very cafe. I've walked past it before, and showed her, with a downloaded tube map on my phone, why she couldn't use the much bigger one overhead baffled me, how to get to Edgware Station, pointing out the long branch. I told her that if she hurried, she'd be able to make it before the clock struck midnight. She turned her attention back to her phone without giving me thanks or even acknowledgement that I'd said anything. I signaled to her at Easton Station, which was the interchange onto the Northern Line. I happened to be going to Camden Town, which also took the same line, so I tailed her carefully to ensure that she was going in the right direction, watching her repeat the same actions as when she first raised red flags. Exiting the train at said Camden Town, walking along the platform to the way out, I stole a glance inside the train and grinned devilishly when I saw her busy on her phone inside the train that was making its way north to Edgware. Mission success. I had plenty of time to meet my friend at his house as it was close to the station, but I knew that a certain lady would not be celebrating 2019 with her friends, and instead aimlessly trying to find a cafe miles away on the street. I told my friend this, and we had a great time that night laughing about the story while watching the fireworks on the TV. Perhaps it was bad of me to ruin a New Year's Eve for a single person, but it was on her to be a nuisance to the general public, especially those who just wanted to get from A to B without a hitch. If she'd had just an ounce of kindness, she might have gotten there in plenty of time. And our second story. You will reply to my emails. So a little background first. I work on a fast-attack nuclear submarine. It's for the Navy, so authority figures, chiefs, don't always talk to their subordinates in a way that would be acceptable in a normal business environment. Also, when we're out to sea, underway, we have to share 2 beds with 3 people. We rotate. It's called hot racking, so our sleep is very precious to us. We were underway a while ago, and my chief emailed me about some tasking he had for me. Keep in mind, I'm a pretty good sailor. I've always been one of the top performers of the boat, and I'm in top 3 of evals every time. Well, he emailed me with the task, so I performed said task, and when I saw him eating on crew's mess the next morning, I informed him that I had completed the tasking, even though the deadline was still several days away. Instead of saying good job or even just a simple okay or aye, he proceeded to chew me out in front of half my watch section for not responding to his email, and said that I will respond to every email he sends me. And while I'm a hard worker, one of my flaws is I usually do not hold my tongue when I should, but this morning I was in a good mood because we were visiting a port in Florida in a day or two, so I painfully just took the butt chewing and carried on with my business. Before I went to bed, the rack, I set up a rule in Outlook to auto-respond to any emails I receive from my chief saying something along the lines of, "Hi, Chief. I understand that you've emailed me and I'm now responding to said email. Very respectfully, OP." As I was snuggled up in my rack sleeping like a log, I'm awakened by a member of my division saying, "Hey man, ET1, my leading petty officer, the guy directly under my chief, wants you in crew's mess." So reluctantly, I get out of the rack and report to crew's mess as ordered, where my LPO is waiting with a write-up and laughing hysterically. I check my email to see an email from Chief with tasking, another email from my chief telling me to stop being an effing smartass and to watch who the F I'm talking to, then another email asking if it's an auto-reply with more foul language, and then another email just going ballistic on me, and one last email simply telling me I'll be counseled for this. Needless to say, my chief never screamed at me about emails again, and he was actually removed from my boat for basically being a terrible chief about 4 months after this, and my write-up was eventually shredded by my LPO, who thought the whole situation was hilarious. We have people in a submarine underwater emailing each other. What a time to be alive. And our last story. When the Karen actually does know the manager and the owner. So this happened back in late November 21, and I only heard of most of it secondhand. I work at a really nice Chinese-American dim sum restaurant in the city, and we've got a strong following of regulars. One of these regulars is an old couple that have been coming to have tea and dim sum religiously since we first opened and through the pandemic. Now, ever since we started asking for proof of vaccination plus ID because of city ordinances, the staff never actually asked this couple for theirs. That is until our newly hired front-of-the-house host asked them after discovering staff didn't even ask them during their meal. As you would guess, these old regulars weren't even vaccinated. When told they shouldn't be in the restaurant without vaccination, they threw a fit. Old Chinese Karen then threatened to call the manager and proceeded to call said manager's personal mobile. The manager was told that the old regulars weren't vaccinated, was stuck in a quandary of having an extremely loyal, well-paying customer and the potential fines by the city should it ever be discovered. In the end, the manager told them that they could not return to eat without proof of vaccination. The old couple finished their food and announced quite vehemently they would never be returning to the restaurant ever again. You'd think that would be the end of it. Guess again. Because the very next day they showed up with their extended family, a group of 20 or so. Everyone except them had proof of vaccination. Old Chinese Karen proceeds to throw a fit when told she could not enter with the rest of the family, trying to guilt-trip the host into letting them in. Unfortunately for her, our host is a veteran of the industry and not at all intimidated in telling her the rules. Cue calling the manager, of which it's explained to her again that she cannot eat at the restaurant without proof of vaccination. At this point, everyone's quite done with this, and the family are going to send their parents back home via Uber. Before old Chinese Karen leaves, she proclaims that the host and the manager would rue the day for embarrassing her by calling the owner, and thus she does so, calling him and being told in no uncertain terms that she cannot eat there. Let's just say she was not at all happy with being told so. So all Karen could say was, "We're never coming back here again." Well, let's just say that we know where she lives and that she still orders delivery from our restaurant to this day. I like the fact that the rest of the family was fed up with her and were willing to send her and the husband home while the rest ate out. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.